Welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. Today's video is going to be absolutely bonkers. Now, the data is in, and once again, we're talking about the government shutdown that's about to take place. So today we're going to explore a couple articles to see what impacts the government shutdown may have on the housing market and how it could potentially displace tens of thousands of Americans that are applying for mortgages that are backed by the government. And shockingly, yet again, we're talking about another government shutdown. Something needs to change, in my opinion. We shouldn't be waiting to the last minute to figure things out in our government. This is so ridiculous to me. My mind is absolutely blown. But regardless, we're going to see what impacts. One of the main concerns that I personally have with the government shutdown is the 10-year yields going down. We don't want interest rates to go down like they did in March of this year. When interest rates went down in March this year and liquidity was injected into our economy, the housing market went absolutely crazy. So we don't want that to happen again. That's one of my biggest fears. I understand how bad it could be for people that are shopping with an FHA, VA, or USDA mortgage, but regardless, we need buying demand stifled. Regardless, understand I'm not a financial advisor, even though my bio is as a realtor, loan officer, and instructor in real estate in Texas, and I had a foreclosure, bankruptcy, and repo, so I've been around the block and I know how things work. And if you guys can, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, shoot me a comment below, and I really hope you enjoy. The name of this article is Government Shutdown Could Leave Thousands of Federally Backed Mortgages in Limbo. Now, VA loans are guaranteed. FHA, USDA loans are backed by the federal government. Aspiring homeowners who are applying for government-backed mortgages may face unexpected delays in the event of a government shutdown, as if homebuyers didn't have enough to worry about. In addition to elevated interest rates and high home prices, Americans applying for government-backed mortgages may face unexpected delays in the event of a partial government shutdown. And this is one primary reason I keep telling y'all you need to increase your credit, because as we go into the tightening cycles and recession and potentially have unhinged unemployment, credit tightening is going to happen. So we need absolutely great credit. We need to make sure our purchasing power is strong so that we can stay ahead of the credit tightening. If we're not doing things to evolve right now, we may get swept in the wind like these people. As the new fiscal year approaches on October 1st, they don't start January 1st. The new fiscal year starts October 1st with no funding in place, as lawmakers have yet to reach a deal. The Biden administration has already begun advising federal agencies to review and update their shutdown plan. So instead of work through it, just prepare for a shutdown. Pretty shocking. If Congress doesn't pass legislation to renew funding by September 30th, which is in a handful of days, the federal government will shut down at midnight, which has significant implications to the U.S. consumer. Super depressing. Buyers could face delays taking out government-backed mortgages. People in the middle of closing on a home. Think about that. You're in the middle of closing on a home. You have a contract. There's earnest money involved. You put money into escrow, and all of a sudden the government says, oh, you got to wait. You can't get this loan. Now, honestly, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing right now for people that are purchasing, but think about that in a more balanced housing market. That is unacceptable. Comment down below whether or not you agree with me. And these are people that are closing on FHA loans, as you can see here, Federal Housing Administration, and on USDA loans, which is agricultural loans. If those agencies halt operations, thousands of buyers may be left in the lurch, with the risk of their home sale falling apart. If the sellers turn to other buyers who may have other sources of funding or with all cash. So they're saying they're going to turn away from people once again with FHA, USDA, and probably VA loans. So whose fault is that? To me, it sounds like it's the federal government's fault. An estimated 2,500 home loans per day may be delayed in the event of a partial government shutdown, according to an analyst by Zillow and Market Watch. A government shutdown would leave some aspiring homebuyers with outstanding loans in limbo. The Trump-era 2019 shutdown was the longest in U.S. history, when the federal government closed for 35 days. At that time, then President Donald Trump wanted more funding for a border wall between the U.S. and Mexico. Zillow economists noted that when the government entered a prolonged shutdown in early 2019, government agencies were operating with limited staff, hence were expecting delays. In the fourth quarter of last year, the FHA originated 140,000 single-family loans, the Zillow economist noted, over 61 working days. That works out as an average of about 2,300 per day. There were roughly 54,000 U.S. loans originated by the Department of Agricultural Farm Service Agency and Rural Housing Services in 2022, over 250 working days. And that's your USDA loans. Those are loans that have no down payment and don't come with mortgage insurance per se. Actually, it's actually a really good loan. It just takes a long time to close. The shutdown also has disproportionate impact on Black home buyers, they noted, as they rely more on the federal agencies for mortgages. In 2022, a quarter of the loans originated to Black home buyers were FHA and USDA loans. In contrast, only 9% of loans originated to white borrowers were from FHA and USDA. So what we have here is, once again, we have the government messing around with the housing market in a very bad way. Essentially, it affects, once again, the consumers, and it does not help us with some of the true problems and issues in our housing market, which we can all pretty much agree on. Institutional investing and investing in our housing market has got completely out of control. There are some investors that completely cross the line. I get some people maybe owning 2, maybe 3, even 4 houses, but some of these people own 1,000 houses, 500, hundreds of houses. And to me, I say tax them or do something about it. And I understand a lot of people aren't going to agree with me on that, but I say renters should have the first opportunity to purchase real estate because they're Americans that are paying taxes. And I'm sick of watching these corporations continue to get rich off the backs of consumers that are having financial struggles, which is like 70% of consumers in America right now. It's completely despicable. But let's go into one more article from Redfin. How would a government shutdown impact the housing market? Low demand in DC. This would possibly temporarily dip mortgage rates, and that's 100% what we do not want. And you can read here just this first line: impact on overall economy, treasury yields likely to decline, Fed less likely to hike interest rates. So we don't want that. Obviously, that would put a wrench into things. Let's just read this last paragraph, okay? Impact on housing markets. Mortgage rates could come down temporarily. Demand likely to dip in DC. A government shutdown could bring mortgage rates down a bit if long-term treasury yields fall with slightly greater recession worry. But rates would probably go back up once the shutdown ended. That could provide a small boost to home buying demand around the country. On the flip side, shutdowns typically bring down consumer sentiment, which would contract that boost. Both of these effects would likely reverse once the shutdown ends, unless the government stayed closed for a very long time. The biggest impact would be on Washington, D.C. area, which is where federal government workers are concentrated. A furlough would bring home buying demand in DC down for as long as it lasts, and possibly a month or two after it ends, because workers won't be paid for a few weeks. The shutdown is unlikely to last long enough to render furloughed workers unable to make rent or mortgage payments. Workers are typically given back pay, and lenders could offer forbearance until workers receive their pay. But forbearance probably isn't necessary for most workers because many of them can dip into their savings to cover one payment. If the shutdown lasts longer than usual, the impact could be bigger. And if y'all can't do me a favor, let me know how you feel about our government continuing to manipulate the housing market. Now, the question is like, what do you do with all this information? There's not a lot we can do right now because things take so much time to play out in the housing market. So you have a couple options. Either you can buy right now, or you can decide not to buy right now. There are people out there that want to buy, that are buying right now. What I would be doing is trying to find homes that I love, and I would try to have the proper expectations, meaning I'm probably going to be trapped in my house for 5 to 10 years. But on top of that, I'm also looking for homes with wedge, or rather purchasing homes under market value. And then the other thing I'm looking for are properties with cash flow. It's really hard to do that depending on your down payment. Now, if you don't want to buy right now, what we should be doing is double downing on all of our preparation when it pertains to credit, income, and assets. There is nothing wrong with staying on the sidelines waiting to purchase a property so long as each and every one of us is evolving and increasing our purchasing power. That's how people win. We cannot keep our heads in the sand. We have to be able to rely on ourselves. The less dependence we have on the government and the powers that be, and the more faith we have in ourselves, generally the better off we will be. And do me a favor, you guys, once again, comment below. Let me know how long you think the government shutdown is going to last, and let me know the impacts you think that government shutdown is going to create on the housing market, if any. And other than that, guys, I really hope you guys got some new value, insights, and perspective. And if you're out there investing in real estate, you know I wish you luck, and I hope you win.